Alright, hello again, and welcome to another edition of the very basic Hearts of Iron 4 tutorials. Once again, we're using the Kaiserreich mod instead of just vanilla, just because I enjoy the mod. Last episode, we talked about the most basic instructions you needed for creating an army, running an army, and all that kind of jazz. This episode, I'm going to do a very brief introduction to industry and research and production. Research is very simple, so let's just jump with that. When you first boot up the game and anytime you research a technology, a little flask pops up. Just click it and you see each nation has its own different amount of research tabs. Some have 5. You can actually usually get additional research tabs through your national focuses. So, typically people always ask, what research do you start off with? There's no correct answer, but there is an answer that may be more correct than most. Is you always want to start off with the engineering tab, the industry tab, and kind of expand from there. Germany already starts with this. Not every nation does, I believe. So you can either start with reinforcement rate, which is good, but this one reduces research time by 3%, which is better. And then you want to just get more production. Production efficiency cap means you produce things better. Construction over here, it literally see what it says. It increases your construction speed and repair speed for what you're building. That's always good stuff. And your 4th tab, some people like to rush oil plants. Some people are crazy and they like to start atomic research in 1936. You don't want to do this. It wastes a lot of time. And a research slot for 1,524 days. Again, not worth it. So you can, kind of depends what you want to focus on. Armor, but Germany, see, they don't have the 1936 tank researched yet, so Germany likes their tanks. Go ahead and do that. But again, as long as you start off with your engineering and industrial research, and you fill out your 4th one or your 5th one with something that you want to focus on, that's going to be basically decided by your playstyle. Alright, now let's talk about infrastructure, construction, factories, etc. If you click the construction tab, which is like an excavator device up here, we're using the colored icons mod to make things stand out more. Click the construction tab, and it brings up a whole list of stuff. Air bases, anti-air, infrastructure, military civilian dockyards, etc., etc. Alright. Very quickly, anti-air is exactly what it sounds like. If you build it in a province, it'll automatically try to shoot down enemy airplanes as they fly overhead. It's that simple. But what we really want to focus on early on in the game, civilian factories are your bread and butter. They don't make your guns, but what civilian factories do is they make everything else produce a lot faster. You see how Germany has 52 civilian factories? 29 of them are in use for consumer goods. Consumer goods is exactly what it sounds like. The bulk of your civilian factories are focused on, what's that icon? Making toasters and refrigerators and cars and all that kind of jazz, because you're not at war. When you go to war later on, you'll be able to change your laws in government from civilian economy to one of these, which you can hover over and see what they do to your production. But you use civilian factories to build the rest, so the more you have, the faster things will build. Now, directly tied into that is infrastructure. You can see Germany's pretty well, has good infrastructure, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. The higher your infrastructure impacts, see that green percentage number under those tabs, the 9 out of 50? I have the unlocked all building slots for all countries mod. The 9 out of 50, the higher that percentage, it basically means your things in that province will build faster. In this case, 70%, so 70% faster. You build your civilian infrastructure, like your civilian factories like that. You see how it says 15 out of 15 and then 8 out of 15? That's because you have 29 of your 52 factories going towards consumer goods, so the rest of your factories are going into this, which means you're using 23 factories to build stuff. 8 plus 15 is 23. 29 factories are dedicated to consumer goods. See how these are 0 out of 15? They won't get built, or they won't have anything start construction until these 15 out of 15 factories free up. which is why it can be important in the early game to build more civilian factories. It just means you're going to have a better industry for building stuff. So you left click to build, and if you made a mistake and you built on the wrong province, you can right click, to cancel the construction. So infrastructure like this helps with supply, it helps with your construction speed. You can hover over the icon, it tells you exactly what it does. So infrastructure is always a good thing to build. But again, the more civilian factories you have, the more these 15 out of 15, this 8 out of 15, the 0 out of 15. If you had 45 civilian factories available for construction, not just consumer goods, you would have 15 out of 15, 15 out of 15, 15 out of 15, 0 out of 0. That's why civilian factories are so important. Military factories, the more you have of those, and again, so you see how it's only using 23, it's because we only have 23 available for construction. Let's talk about naval dockyards. You use naval dockyards only on the coast. That hopefully is obvious to everybody. And naval dockyards are used to build your naval ships. We'll talk about that in the production tab here in a minute. The more naval dockyards you have, the more naval ships you can build at the same time, or the more you can put into a single naval ship. You'll see that in the next screen. Oil plants, synthetic refineries. This building provides that state with +7 oil and +4 rubber. So for countries in Europe that don't produce a lot of oil, synthetic refineries can be very valuable. They are capped early on with technology. You can only have one synthetic refinery per province. That will change later on as you get additional technology and research more of the synthetic refinery and oil production techs. That will definitely increase later on. We don't have the technology for rocket sites, but it helps with rocket technology. And nuclear reactors are what you use to build, nuclear power plants and later on nuclear bombs. Air bases are exactly what they sound like. The more air bases you have in a state, the more planes that air base can effectively manage and repair, and you can station there. You won't be getting the combat penalties if you put 1,000 planes in a state that can only house 100 planes. Naval bases are the same thing as air bases, just for, the Navy. The more naval bases you have in a province, the higher number of ships that province can effectively support and repair and such. Naval bases aren't used for production, only naval dockyards. Naval bases increase the range of your fleet, do repairs, and oversee supplies. So it's always important if you're going to invade a country, like let's say Germany wanted to invade England, you want to take one of these naval bases so you can keep up a good string of supplies across the channel. Coastal forts and land forts, they literally just increase your defense either on the coast or on the land, like the famous Maginot Line. So that's what the fortresses are for. So that's industry in a nutshell. And next we're going to talk about military production. Alright, now we're going to chat about military production and naval production. The free military factories icon, it brings up your production tab. And if you combine that with the logistics tab, which shows you your equipment, this will increase once we unpause the game. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. Alright, let it cycle a couple days. See how we got convoys, but once we start actually building stuff, you're going to see more show up in here. Now, what do you want to build? There are certain things you absolutely, at a bare minimum, have to construct in this game to be successful. There are ways to min-max, there's ways to kind of game the system, to not cheat the system, but to overwhelm the AI. You build a division with nothing but heavy tanks and heavy artillery and heavy rockets. But the basics you need to build, you definitely want infantry equipment, you want support equipment, and you want artillery. If you build nothing but these three, you will at least have a decent game. Maybe not the best game, but you will at least have enough of an army to maybe defend. You'll be able to attack, depending on your division templates. But you need to build at least these three. You see how it's saying we're using 3 of 24 military factories? I'm also using the extended production mod. It just makes assigning factories easier. See how there's one little green factory in each of these? You add those up, you get 3. But let's say you wanted to put 10 military factories on infantry equipment. Now you're using 12 of 24, which means you have 12 left. So you might do 3 and 3. Then maybe you want to build a little bit of motorized. The Germans already start off with some tanks. So maybe you want to build some heavy tanks and some light tanks. But remember, you also need military factories to build your air force. So you don't want to just dump it all into nothing but infantry equipment. I mean, you can. I mean, that is one way to play. But when you have an advanced military like Germany starts off with in this game, and Union of Britain, France, and a few other countries, you need to really kind of divide up your factories. Then again, you don't have to. My playstyle, I don't use heavy tanks. I almost never produce them. I usually take them out of my divisions. I focus on light and medium tanks. That's my playstyle. Maybe you don't like light tanks, maybe you like heavy tanks. Everybody's different. That's the nice thing about Hearts of Iron, is you can play to your whatever your preferred playstyle is. Naval dockyards. 0 out of 20. Germany starts off with a whole slew of ships you can build. If you have any kind of trade going on whatsoever, you want to build convoys. If you don't have enough convoys, it will definitely impact your ability to conduct supply and trade routes. And again, Hearts of Iron 4 unfortunately doesn't have the best naval system ever developed by Paradox. There's no one way to say what are the best ships to build. There's a lot of people that rely on the heavy cruiser destroyer combination. I tend to roleplay, for lack of a better term, a little bit, where I have the bulk of my navy is heavy, light, and destroyers, or heavy cruisers, light cruisers, and destroyers, supporting a few battleships and a few carriers. There's some people that exclusively build battleships, and they just have a roving death stack of battleships with light cruisers and destroyers. You can do that. It's really up entirely to your play style. I mean, you can build as much or as little as you want. I will say the light cruisers and destroyer mix is always going to be very useful. But again, you assign the naval dockyards just like you assign the military factories. With the aircraft carriers, you have another little button, this little aerial icon. This is the default composition. Carrier fighters, close air support, and naval bombers. I don't think we have any close air support yet. But you want to make sure that your ratio stays 45 to 45 or 70 to 70, 85 to 85, whatever this is. That's what every carrier you build will automatically assign these to them if you have enough in your logistics tab. So again, this will auto-update as time goes on. It's showing you what we have in our stored and what we're producing each day. It also shows the resource requirements we need to continue this production line. See how I didn't assign any factories to construct anything, so that icon is still going on. So build some more civilian, and we'll build some more military. And what I tend to do as a player is I intermix like this. If you hold shift and hit this button, it sends whatever factory you want automatically to the top. So that way it'll build a military factories, then it'll build a civilian, and then I focus on building this, that, and the other thing. And you notice I now have more factories available because my country automatically is exporting stuff, so I gained 15 more factories to construct with. That's good news. Germany has a lot of resources, they can do that. France has a lot of steel. I believe England, the Union of Britain has a lot of steel. America has just essentially unlimited resources. I think their only thing they're short on is maybe tungsten that they have to trade for. But they have so much oil in Texas. Yeah, I mean, 280 oil there, 300 oil there. They're the top oil producer in the game. So they trade a lot of their oil to get more factories. So that's, Hearts of Iron 4 in a nutshell. We talked about research. We talked about construction and the importance of infrastructure, which makes your stuff build better. We talked about how civilian factories are used to build everything else. So the more you have, the more you build. And so on and so forth. So if these tutorials are proving helpful, or if I'm just a noob, which is entirely possible, like I said in my last video, there are way better players out there making far more detailed tutorials. I'm making these just to be quick blasts of information to give you the bare minimum details you need to at least jump into a game and start playing right away. So, hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will see you next time.